council tonight? If you would, please give your name and address for the record.
My name's Bill Hibbard. My wife and I live at 9720 Anchor Drive in Tuscaloosa. And I'm here to thank you for what you've done. And I'm not going to be able to be here next week. I'm afraid I'll be out of town, so I wanted to share some thoughts. I've sent a lot of questions in over 3 different times, and I know y'all been too busy to answer them because I hadn't got answers yet. Just drop them, okay? Don't worry about the questions. I have answered one of them for myself in a roundabout way. There are 244 R3 zone lots in the Forest Lake area that are non-compliant. That leads into a situation, now there've probably been more. All I used was the rear yard setback, the side yard setbacks, and the lot sizes. And it's available, and I tried to put it on the link for the We're Coming Back Forest Lake community. I couldn't get it to work. I don't know how to do that. But I do have a link if anyone would like to have it check their lot size. It's online. You can go and you can find your way around a map online. You can find your lot and get that information. But my wife and I don't think that it's right for any homeowner, because of any action of anyone or any group, even this council. We don't feel that any homeowner should lose anything on their house. It's not an eminent domain situation. Nobody's going to pay them simply because there's a new rule. We think that the zoning that's in the plan is wrong for many of the lots. If you want people to live there, give them the ability to put the same size lot back. Right now, these 244 lots, if they're more than 50% destroyed, will have to be taken down. I've got another point to make where they've been injured with that as well. Now, that is not something just with the tornado. That's been going on, I understand, since 1972, if you have a non-compliant lot. There's something inherently wrong with that. The information that we had at that time was the best they had, but I think we need to very well look at this moving forward. A person with a non-compliant lot will have to sacrifice size to get their setbacks right. If they can't get their setbacks right, they have to get a variance. And there are some options with variances, but they may get one. It's not that they will, they may get one. They may be lotless, they may be homeless. Everything may be out the window at their own expense. There's no eminent domain to pay them for their loss because of the zoning, okay? That's where we have our concern. We don't own any land in there, but we've been working over there since the tornado, and we're very concerned about what's going on. Those lots in the plan don't need to be as they are now. There's some R1 lots that can't be built on. They need to be R3. We need to identify those lots. And I'm not talking about a lot of expense, hiring surveyors to go out and say, well, this is 6 inches out of the way. Just that they are non-compliant based on their size generally, and get the education out. Most of the people didn't know they were non-compliant until this storm hit, and it's been around since '72. It has nothing to do with the plan. It has to do with the zoning requirements. But the plan does have zoning in the plan, and those zones in the plan need to be correct. If this council and this city and all of us are supporting We're Coming Back, we need support. They're staying there as they live, not as we want them to live, as they want to live. If they want to have a smaller house, fine. But if they don't, they should be able to put the same house back. And if that means 0 lot lines, which I don't think it does, but if it does mean that, that's what we need to do. If it means super grandfathering houses in there that can show they were a lot prior to, which is the case right now, to get some exception to that for those 244 homes. There is some exception, but it's not enough to give them the same house, you see. Now, my time is about up, so I'm going to go, this is oversimplification. There's an insurance problem that has caused these folks harm too. If their house is not 90% destroyed, they're in trouble, because the average homeowner's insurance only has a 10% LNA. I think it's called legal or legislative and authoritative insurance embedded in the policy. They'll pay for these types of things if they have to do 10% more than the damage in the house. Let's say there's a house that's $100,000. There's $60,000 damage. The insurance is required to pay $60,000 damage, okay? but the city's requiring to take that house down. There's $40,000 more damage on that house. Who's going to pay that? Is the mortgage company going to pay it? Are they going to lose the loan? Do they know about it? Is the citizen going to pay it? Did they know about it? I rather doubt they knew about it. Most houses were totally destroyed, so this isn't a majority problem, but there's an issue here where we have a situation where people can be harmed. $10,000 would come out of it if they had that house insured for the $100,000. Oh, I'm over. I'll be glad to talk with you or a committee about all these issues that are concerning us, and I know we can make a good decision moving forward, and we appreciate what you're doing, but we want you to be sure and get these zones right and tell these people individually so they know to get the insurance and the protection, which we're going to make them pay because of the zoning. I'm sorry I went over.
No problem. Thank you, Bill.
Mayor, I'm sorry to take up more time, but he did write a letter at least a week ago, if not 2 weeks ago now, and I got it sitting on my desk to reply to you. But I wonder, so I apologize for not doing that yet, if either John McConnell or Robin Edgeworth could just briefly address one or two of these issues that he...
I have already talked with them.
You have? Okay.
And this morning they had no idea that what the numbers were. And I talked with the city clerk and said they really won't know until somebody submits a plan to determine whether they are compliant or not. Nobody's going out to determine, what is the effect. Well, that's an important part of this plan is moving forward is, what is the issue in this neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
Well, under the Tuscaloosa Forward Plan, there is no zoning that's been assigned.
That's right. But there is a zoning in there that's been set aside for the plan.
No, what's set aside is a residential, neighborhood residential, which is a land use. But to my knowledge, we don't have any exact zoning in there dealing with lot size, setback, or any of those issues. John,
The zoning requirements are not in the plan. That's right. That's why I was saying get the plan. What your plan shows is going to be an R3 or it's going to be a business, it's going to be an R1. But if that's not going to work for those lots, we need to change it on the lot. Change their lot zoning.
I don't, though, within the Forest Lake neighborhood itself, the land use is to keep it neighborhood residential, which was one of the things we heard very strongly from the Forest Lake Neighborhood Association is to make sure that they can keep that strong residential component and in many ways try to keep the encroachment of student housing. That was the overwhelming feedback that we received.
John has been very helpful. He's helped me understand a lot of the stuff, and I understand the zoning is not part of this plan, but the plan shows zoning for those homes, and it should be in the plan to target to have the right zoning on those homes in moving forward is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it does. I'm saying it needs to.
Well, Bill, you're exactly right. The thing that the question the council, these 7 people ultimately decide is do they want the future land use of Forest Lake to be residential? And if it is, then you have to develop the zoning around that. But let's say, and I don't think this would be the case, let's say for some reason they said, we want Forest Lake to be commercial. Then you'd have to go in that direction. So I think...
Which we are in the plan. You've changed from residential to commercial in this plan. But you didn't change any... We didn't change, we didn't change as a city any of the R zonings to what they should be. We changed some R zonings to business around 16. Because that's the plan initiative. But we didn't look at the individual homeowners in there, and there's a significant number. But John's been very great. I spoke with him, and I hope we get the alleys cleared up to help the parking. There are a lot of things we've been talking about besides this, and I'll be glad to share it if you're interested, and I hope that you are.
Thank you, Bill. John, you want to... Thank you, Bill. John, you want to add?
Yeah, and I apologize, Mr. Hibbard. I wasn't able to take down everything that he said, but I did hone in on a few things that I think needs a little clarification. First of all, the plan versus existing zoning. Right now, we have an existing set of zoning codes and a zoning map that's been in place since 1972. A lot of the houses in Forest Lake were built prior to that, so a lot of them are non-conforming. You do have some that are not non-conforming. The plan does not dictate zoning. The plan is a high-level vision for which ultimately, once it's adopted, we will explore new zoning districts that accomplish the intent of the plan, that help accomplish the intent. So the plan is not a regulatory document. It suggests use categories. And the majority of Forest Lake is suggested to be residential use, and primarily single-family residential use. We have current zoning districts that guide the density of single-family residential uses. You have R1, R2, and R3, all of which that Forest Lake contain within its boundaries. Those guide the density. In other words, R1, the houses are further apart from the ones in R2. In R3, they're a little closer together than the ones in R2. So as we move forward, once the plan is adopted, I think we will be recommending appropriate densities and forms in the neighborhoods, recognizing that Forest Lake is no longer suburban. It hadn't been suburban for decades. It's an urban neighborhood. So having said that, I think we sort of come full circle back to the small lots that were originally platted in R1. The actual adoption and codification of the new zones in the plan will likely benefit those property owners by allowing them to build out more of that lot. And I'm saying that because we hadn't gotten to that point yet, but the vision suggests a more urban form and urban density.
Because setback is a suburban form of zoning.
Exactly. These large setbacks that are in our existing ordinance is more of a suburban form. So I think the residents will actually benefit in the future. Now, there is a sort of a misunderstanding about the 50% rule when it comes to nonconformities. And when I say nonconformity, I mean a nonconforming structure, a structure that doesn't meet its setbacks on its lot. If you experience a 50% or more of the replacement cost of your structure, then we don't require you to tear it down. That's a misunderstanding. The city does not require you to tear your structure down. It requires you to build back in conformity with the current zoning regulations. So if you have half a building standing or 51% of your building standing, you can build it back, but the portion that you build back must conform. We do not require you to tear it down. Those were the things that I keyed on in Mr. Hibber's comments. The other thing is there are non-conforming lot sizes. You have non-conforming structures, but you also have non-conforming lot sizes. A lot of the lots in the R3 zones are smaller dimensionally, width, and area than are required for a lot that would be platted today under that zoning category. It doesn't mean you can't build back on that lot. As long as you meet your zoning dimensional requirements that have been on the books for some time now, you can build back. We've issued a few thousand permits already since the tornado. I've had very few instances where someone has come to our office and they absolutely cannot build back. There are many instances where somebody wants to build back exactly where they were and they don't meet the setback requirements or other. But it doesn't mean they can't build back in a conforming way. So we're working through all of those issues right now, but I think the thing to take home is that ultimately, after the adoption of the plan, the zoning could change there in a much more beneficial way to the property owners.
John, will any of those zoning changes be without the consent of the owner? Or they won't be forced upon them. The opportunity for changes would be there.
No, sir. It would be a zoning change.
It will be changed.
You would establish entirely new zones there, but again, they would be in conformity with the plan, which is the direction, and it would be in a form that's more conducive to the urban environment and relates more to what they are and what they were prior to the storm. Okay. You had small houses on small lots. The plan recognizes that's pretty much the correct form for this area of town.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill,
Mayor, can I ask John?
Bill, we're not going to get it.
I want to thank John. I agree, and I understood everything he said beforehand. I still say the houses need to be built back the same size. They can't build the same. I'm not saying the same footprint, but we don't need to take away from the homeowners the house that they have.
Thank you, Bill.
Without their knowing.
I'm going to cancel my question. That's okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Ma'am, if you would please give your name and address for
Hello, I'm Jean Allen, and I'm co-chairman of the Tuscaloosa County Property Rights Alliance. And I live in Hillsdale. I'm a retired peace officer. And gentlemen, with all due respect, I'm here to say I do not appreciate what you're doing in regards to Tuscaloosa Forward. I didn't come tonight to beat up on you guys. I didn't come tonight to call you names. I didn't come to say you're evil men. I didn't come to say you're communist. Good men can do bad things. Tuscaloosa Forward is an evil plan. There's not time here tonight for me to tell you all that I'd like to tell you about what I think the roots of this are. Let me just summarize it by saying that this originated in the United Nations, and I'm not saying that United Nations troops are going to be coming to Tuscaloosa, but the plan for sustainable development is behind what's going on with home rule. It's behind what's going on with all these initiatives, and it's based on the radical environmental agenda. The people that think that the little snail darter is just as important as we are. It's gotten out of hand, gentlemen. If you look at the terms that are in your plan, first of all, let's start with FEMA. I'm getting calls from people who are not happy. I'm getting calls from people who are saying, I can't rebuild, being told I can't rebuild. I was offered $80,000 from my property, and now, because it's in the floodway, I'm not going to be able to get that money from my property. And what I'm saying, gentlemen, is that Tuscaloosa Forward is a slap in the face to private property and private property owners. It's an absolute slap in the face. Our 1901 Alabama Constitution says the role of government is to protect the life, liberty, and property of its citizens. When it does anything else, it is usurpation and oppression. Let's look at FEMA real quickly. There are people in North Alabama that were put into floodways under the FEMA revised flood plans that were on a hilltop where it never flooded and would never ever flood. It's real suspicious how FEMA operates, and I believe they're pretty much bankrupt too. But when a federal agency comes along and offers money, we tend to take our palm and let them grease it with a little money. And we tend to talk ourselves into saying it's good. It's good for the citizens and it's good for, but it's not, because there's strings attached. There are always strings attached. When people begin to realize where this comes from and where it's headed, they're going to be angry. It's starting to happen all over the country. It's starting to happen in Alabama, in different places. When they realize what's going on, they vote their commissioners out of office. They vote their city council out of office because they don't want this. FEMA, when people realize that we did not have to deal with the revised flood plans, it was voluntary. Our participation, our local participation with FEMA is voluntary, not mandatory. No one should be having to go through with what they're going through. No one should have to suffer. No one should have their property devalued. And we're going to do lots of things in the Tuscaloosa Forward plan about sustainability, smart growth. We're going to be hearing about the bike paths, the pedestrian trails. We're going to hear about greenways. And if you want to go home, and I found tonight, before I came here, a website called the Tea Party Chronicle. And the man that was heading up this website wrote an article called The Audacity of Greenways, and he takes just the concept of greenways, and I'm not going to read it. I don't have time to read it. But he does say that these walking trails, just a few words from there, these walking trails called greenways are taking private property at breakneck speed. Thousands of acres of land are being taken out of the hands of private property owners every day in this country for the unfounded idea that Americans need more nature walks to traverse. And he says that regarding his city council, he said that the city council where I live has adopted the anti-private property rights initiative of establishing greenways. He talks about smart growth. It proposes greenways and open spaces. There's a lot of language that we have to learn when you're dealing with sustainable development. UBG, the urban growth boundary, or the buffer zone, the corridors. You start looking into these, and these are coming. They may not be here now. Not everything is here now, but it's coming. People shouldn't have to worry about behind their house bikeways or pedestrian paths with people encroaching on their property. That's trespassing, and it should not be allowed. And I thank you for giving me the time to speak, and I thought tonight was going to be a hearing, a public hearing, and I hope you will allow public hearing for comments where people can come and tell you what they think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Anyone else wish to address City Council tonight? If you would, please come forward and give your name and address for the record.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Maddie Davis. I live at 2768 Hickory Street. I'm a registered voter in the state of Alabama. I voted for the mayor, and I voted for Harrison Mailman Taylor. I live in Harrison's district. I don't live in your district. However, I do have friends, relatives, and acquaintances in every district on this city council. And you sent me an SOS, so I'm here to answer it. The SOS you sent me was concerning my right to the freedom of speech that I've been given. And anytime you send for me, here I come. I used to attend city council meetings regularly. But I figured, hey, you're not really talking about or discussing anything that really concerned me at the time. So I stopped coming. And I think you've gotten a big head. You have taken advantage of little people. The only person that stood up for little people, and I'm going to give him a pat on the back, is the mayor. I expected my city councilman to be raising sand. I was surprised that he didn't. I don't like to be put in the position where I feel like I'm being taken advantage of, that I'm having something taken away from me. I've been a fighter all my life. My great-granddaddy was a cook during World War I in the Army. My granddaddy was in the Army during World War II. My uncles and my brothers and my son have all served in Kuwait, Vietnam, and Desert Storm. And I'm just very upset with you. Very upset. I could stack this hall if you want me to, with people. If you plan to take my right to freedom of speech away, you're going to be facing a big lawsuit. And a lot of people saying, oh no, this is not the way to go. I went through the demonstrations of the 60s. So I'm pretty well armed, if you want me to be. I just want you to think. Dothan is not Tuscaloosa. You should not be following Dothan down the road of evil. Don't try to take anything from me. If I have something and it will help you, if you ask me, I'm more than willing to help, to give. And I just don't want you to do this. Don't try to take anything away that you did not personally give. And I thank you, and may God continue to bless each and every one of you, is my prayer.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address City Council tonight? Subject to, is that it? I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity. If you would, please come forward and give your name and address for the record.
My name is Sue Parker, and I represent the property that's located on 501 15th Street East, Tuscaloosa. My husband and I are the owners of a postage stamp piece of property that is what you refer to as commercial, and we have owned the business there for approximately 35 years. We had Parker's Drug Store, and we served the community and the people of Tuscaloosa for a long time, and we have enjoyed our residence in this fine city. April the 27th was devastating to those of us who were located on 15th Street. We all had businesses that we were very proud of, that we had worked long and hard for, and we were devastated by the loss of citizens. We were very sad for the loss of those individuals, and then we were also very sad for the loss of our buildings and the structures there where we conduct business. We are very concerned about the direction for which we're headed in looking at the redevelopment of this space that we refer to as 15th Street. That is our home. You know, business owners work 24/7. We're individuals who are giving back to the community daily. We feel we are an important part of this community. There have been, though, concerns that we have felt as business owners as we approach the build-back of the businesses. We have been very concerned about the Tuscaloosa Forward in the regards to information that's been provided for us, because we aren't really sure of what we can do. This Monday, I received a call. I have made arrangements, my husband and I have, to borrow money to try to build back. But we can't build back because there's a moratorium. We can't build back because we're not really sure what we can do. There are no specifics. We have gone through 3 different plans with our engineer. That costs money. Each day a business is closed, we lose money. And we've been closed since April the 27th. And now we understand that we have another moratorium that will last until December. Now I realize you need time to develop your plan, but businesses are not something that you put aside. My customers will not come back. That's the part of business that we need to understand. We need help. We need focus for the business owners. You know, if you think about it, we collect your sales taxes. That's a requirement every month. The 19th of the month, the alarm goes off in my body internally. I owe the sales taxes I've collected. So those are mailed into the city, the state, the county, the city. We collect those. We also are very active in your community, and we help support the growth. Without our participation, without the private investment, you cannot build back. Without the support of the commercial, the business, the entrepreneurs who give of themselves, we give our private investment. So you would like for me to commit myself, for example, this is not a factual amount, I'm using this as an illustration, maybe $500,000. I don't really know what will happen around me. 5th Avenue East, there's a pile of dirt on the street that goes beside my property. And you can't go through there anymore. I didn't know about that was taking place until one day there's a pile of dirt. Is that right to the business owner that's located at 15th Street, 5th Avenue East? To my customers, to those people who come and we serve them? Why was that done? You know, we need answers to questions. We need assistance. We are ready to move forward. There are several business owners that are here tonight, and they all feel the same that I feel, that we need help in moving forward, in taking care of business the way that we know to take care of business, and that isn't to wait. We need someone to start helping us. To be perfectly honest, all of us have been given the runaround as to what we can build back. Several of us have submitted our plans, and then we've been told, well, this is going to be done. We need to do this or change that. And this is how it will be. How do you think that is, as far as, do you not want me to come back? Is my time up?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, how many minutes did I have? 5 minutes and 34 seconds. Okay, I'm very sorry to have taken too much of your time. But it's a very, very important issue, and I really hope you'll look at this Tuscaloosa Forward Plan and think about your business owners. Thank you.
John, if you would come forward as well. I think it's important, though, that the record show that on May 10th, the council enacted an overlay plan for the entire recovery zone. On, what was the date, John?
I believe it was May
Explain what
10th.
that means.
No, on May 10th, the city council enacted a temporary building standards for the recovery zone. Within that, the commercial development was to be in accordance with the downtown overlay plan. Recently, I want to say August 9th off the top of my head, the city actually released 95% of the city from those temporary building standards. At no point was there a moratorium in those areas, although there was a higher building standard. In terms of what the council passed on May 10th and what it passed on May 9th, the only changes were the prohibitive uses that were added to it. There were no change in building standards. Now, I can only assume that if your engineers were asked to go back and resubmit information, it probably had less to do with the temporary building standards and more with your engineering trying to meet the current zoning ordinances that exist. John, is that the case? Because the council itself has not changed any of the rules or regs
Now,
except
I
for the
think
prohibitive uses.
Yeah, from 2 weeks after the
May
storm, we laid down the design guidelines for the commercial area to give people a platform to have two avenues. If they want to go and start building now, they can build to the downtown overlay design standards. But if they would like to wait until the Tuscaloosa Forward Plan and some of the other codes that could possibly change come out, which could be towards the end of the year, they could do one of those two choices. And residentially, they could rebuild at any time.
But the only policy change was the list of prohibited uses that were
Between
added.
May and August, right.
That's right, that were added August 9th. I mean, that's the factual case. Now, I would imagine through the building process that many times people submit plans, you say this has to be corrected, they're sent back out for their engineers to correct. Now, that what I imagine is probably what's happening a great deal. Is that right? I mean, from our
That's true,
conversation?
and I should start, go back to May 10th, whenever the first temporary building standards moratorium was put in place. At that time, we had not started the planning process at all. We were just in the beginning stages, and this was put in place as an interim measure to keep development appropriate until such plan was put in place. As the mayor said, it covered the entire recovery zone.
But it was not called a moratorium.
Moratorium. For legal reasons, we had to use that terminology and then provide the exceptions. So effective, the result was as the mayor described.
The word moratorium gets taken way out of context and has gotten taken way out of context.
That's right, and as the city attorney, I bear full responsibility for the
John,
need to include that standard.
John, if you'll continue.
Yes, and we began working with property owners, some of which that are in this room. A lot of permits were issued, and some were in process. We started the planning process. We worked through the planning process very efficiently and got the mayor the plan that he wanted in a timely manner. The new temporary building standards did release 95% of the moratorium of the recovery area. So it took out all the residential. It honed in on what the plan identified were village centers and mixed-use corridors. And it was very clear in the plan itself what direction and form and land use would eventually come out of those areas. So the new temporary building standards that were adopted in August added some prohibited uses.
Were identical to the ones adopted on May 10th, except for the prohibitive uses and the fact that we released 95% of the recovery zone.
Yes.
And those prohibitive uses, just for the public, were things such as pawn shops, car washes.
And I don't have the list in front of me, but it did include auto repair, pawn shops, check cashing businesses.
I think the point that I want to make, because my heart breaks and sympathizes for everything that you're going through. But the issues that many business owners are facing, could be up to probably 600 are facing, is conforming with ordinances and federal regulations and everything that has transpired in the last 4 decades. And would be struggling with if we said if there never was a May 10th resolution or an August 9th issue, we would still be dealing with those particular issues.
Well, and there are a lot of examples out there. I've worked with Mr. Kuzumato. I've worked with Ms. Parker. We've had a lot of conversations. My staff have had conversations with them through the process. We have existing small lots that are very difficult to build back on because of the restraints that were in existence prior to April 27th. It has a lot less to do with the additional temporary building standards than it has to do with existing setbacks, landscaping, parking requirements that were established, in some cases back in 72 and in subsequent years. But in all cases, or in most cases, these properties were developed prior to zoning. I remember having a conversation with another staff member today that had been here working for Tuscaloosa for a long time and remembered some of those properties as 15th Street widened and even at that time became smaller and smaller. So it's been change over time that's produced the small lot development that we see we saw on 15th Street. And again, those constraints are now becoming in effect since we've had the losses that we had on the 27th.
Any more questions, John?
I'd just like to say that I've learned a lot through this process, and what Mr. McConnell is talking about, anytime those zoning go in effect, you're grandfathered in until such time as something devastating happened to that property. And I'm reminded of the situations we have on 15th Street over in District 1. We have houses that were put in basically in the right-of-way as a result of the widening of 15th Street. Houses that cars have gone into, but we can't do anything about them until such time as they are burned or, blown away or something. Then they'll be required to be restored to a different set of standards. I think one of the things that we got, and you've done a good job explaining, is that we have all of these issues to come to the top at one time, and it's a monumental task, but you've done a great job, and I know that this council is going to work with everybody and try to get them up and running as quickly as possible. Thank you for it.
And if I could say this, I go back to the plan as it is now, and it recognizes a lot of these areas as being urban. And I'm not just saying that for the residential zones, but for the existing commercial areas as well. It may be beneficial to a property owner in the end if they could wait, but I understand that a lot of them can't and they need to rebuild, get their doors back open. But 15th Street doesn't have to look like it does today. A lot of these areas don't have to look like and function like they did prior to the storm. We have an opportunity to correct a lot of the things that were wrong.
Well, I want to make one other point, and if you don't mind, because I have heard this I'm sensitive to it, but I also want to lay some facts out there too. I've been to some of the zoning board of adjustment meetings and listened to the cases, and again, we knew when the storm happened that we would go from heroes to foes in about 100 days. And about Bob, when y'all came back, that's what they told you we would be in that position. And we understood, we would see this day and the next couple weeks forward as we, try to move forward with what's come up from a community plan. But from a standpoint of the direction that we took and from being able to have an opportunity for a business or residents, but really mainly a business for sure, to be able to have a way to rebuild during this planning process that's taken 100 days. We laid out some building standards that people could build back to so that and this was something that we're sensitive to, and I've talked with the staff about it and talked with you about it, Mayor, to make sure that we didn't trigger any situations in people's insurance policies, that we passed something that was a flat moratorium, that people wouldn't be able to rebuild, that their business income insurance would continue to pay net income and continuing expenses, which is also payroll, while they continue to get their plans together and their soft costs to design and engineer and work with city staff and eventually get your building permits, and then you could rebuild. And so I'm sensitive to the fact of what is heard. We all are. But I also think that the facts ought to be out there that the businesses that were affected by these storms should have had, and if not, then they can take their own issues up with their insurance agent and carrier. But because I've been in the business, I've seen this happen, especially during the storm, and I've talked to my colleagues up here and the staff about it, and the truth has to be laid out in the public, and that is a lot of these folks out there who suffered are still waiting, and they're getting their buildings redesigned. But while that's going on, if they were properly insured, they are getting net income and continuing expenses flowing to their business if the carrier is doing the right thing. So the story of someone coming up here, and not tonight, I'm talking about one that happened at the Board of Adjustments the other day, that I need to get 73 people back to work. I almost wanted to say, well, are they not getting a paycheck right now, a paid vacation, which a lot of people are. And if they're not, then they need to check and find out why they're not. But insurance dollars are indemnifying a lot of these businesses out there right now. Some are doing a better job than others, and I'll agree with that. But the whole story needs to be told, that we need to make sure, and that's one of the things I told the mayor, is that I don't want to see us rush through and push something through that's going to be a 50-year plan to try to do it right, when if we could just be a little bit patient, and then while insurance carriers are hopefully indemnifying businesses for lost income, lost wages, and things of that nature, that's something that we need to do. And we crafted a lot of the things that we passed up here so that we wouldn't trigger some of those carriers to say, city passed something right here, we don't have to pay you anymore. And that was well thought out. It hasn't been well explained up here. I probably didn't just explain it well. But the whole story needs to be out there that is going on. And that we have spent a lot of time up here trying to craft legislation to allow people to rebuild now without triggering something where they can say, we can quit paying your business income now because the city passed a carte blanche moratorium on any type of construction. That is not the case. It's not the case. And I've heard from a lot of different folks, but I'll be honest with you, out of the how many businesses? 700?
600 by the chamber's estimate.
I mean, you've probably heard from 599 of them up here, but I've heard from several other ones, and I've asked them some of these questions and asked them how we could help, but I haven't heard from that many of them. Most people have said, we understand, we can rebuild this way, or we can wait for the plan and let our insurance continue to indemnify us until we want to rebuild after the plan is done. Or go ahead and start rebuilding with our insurance dollars under the downtown overlay design plans. So it's hard to get all these facts out there, and I guess it's frustrating when you sit up here sometimes when you're working up here, and we're not working near the hours you and staff are, trying to get this done at a fast pace, but yet do it right. And then also make sure the whole story is told about, what the insurance companies are doing to indemnify people while they wait for this plan. And I know that was a long, but it's frustrating sometimes when you don't have the whole story. And I know you take it a lot more than we do. But anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Garrison. Any other council comments before we close citizens' comments?
Yes.
You would please give your name and address for the record.
My name is Ken Baird. I reside at 12333 Falcon Crest Circle in Northport. I have a business at 517, or used to have a business at 517 15th Street East. I'd like to address Mr. Garrison's concerns about insurance company, as I just had a meeting with my adjuster today who informed me that not complying with city zoning codes is not considered due diligence in rebuilding. And yes, I have 12 months worth of business income insurance, but for the fact that had I been able to meet the zoning codes that were in place and rebuild, that basically what he has said is we would have been able to rebuild within 5 months. So my business income will go away after September the 30th. Now,
You do meet the current. You could, and again, I apologize. I know if you were to build today what you had on April 26th, you meet current zoning, all zoning regs, landscaping, every bit, correct?
And again, the corporation, I'm a franchise owner. The corporation has appealed to circuit court the variance ruling. I would.
Are you with McDonald?
My personal opinion, yes.
Okay.
My personal opinion is before the variance we were asking for, and I really don't want to get into it since it is going to be.
I'm sorry. I'll add 40 more seconds to your time, and you
okay.
go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
But the variances that we asked for, I think, prior to April 26th would have been granted. But I believe it's my opinion and the local business people's opinion that the city has decided to tighten up, not allow any variances for any of these businesses that were damaged beyond 50% until they can get this new plan in place. And I'm just stating you my belief and I'm echoing what I'm hearing from other business owners. Now, if I could, I would like to ask, I've been well involved with the whole process of the Tuscaloosa Forward Plan. I've attended the meetings back at the Bryant Conference Center and Central High School. But since the mayor has presented the plan that will be presented to you, I guess, at the next council meeting, I've tried to find the revisions. And short of going to the city website and looking up the Tuscaloosa Forward Plan and reading through the whole plan again, there's nothing highlighting the differences from the beginning that I understand and any revisions that have made. So if it's possible, either on the website to highlight the differences or to do another mailing to the individuals so that they understand what the changes are.
We can do that, and the other major difference is we added the infrastructure projects along with it.
Okay. Thank you.
John, if you'll or Robin, will you make note with that, and we'll get with Meredith? Thank you.
Mayor, I will make one point to what he just said, okay? If you did have a law on the books, or an ordinance on the books prior to the storm, it's supposed to cover it under your ordinance and law insurance coverage. It does not cover any ordinance or laws you put on the books after the storm.
Any other citizens' comments? If you would, please come forward and give your name and address for the record.
My name is Rhonda Benton, and I represent EdCab Properties. We are located at 505 15th Street East. For many, many years, I have been at that location in one way or another. When I was 19 years old, I moved to this wonderful city to not only start the University of Alabama, but to open my first business, which was Subway. And I was a Subway franchisee for over 25 years. A few years ago, I did sell my franchises, but I'm now the landlord. And we demolished the old eyesore building, if you remember, that was there, and we put in a new building. And the reason that building sits on the property as it does, where it does, is because that's what the city wanted me to do. We had a few other ideas, but that's basically why we spent that money and did it that way. And by the way, the building structure stood, and there's at least 5 individuals who are still alive today because they were inside that building on April 27th. So
would you give me the
I feel like we've done.
Write down your address quick enough. Which building is it? Just
505 15th
the Subway,
Street East.
It
houses the Subway, the Batteries Plus, and the Phone Restore, and now an empty unit because we can't get a. Anyway, that's not why I'm here to talk about the empty unit. Anyway, our building sits on the rear of that property, and so it's my understanding that with the Tuscaloosa Forward, everybody around me, my neighbors who I've been, who we've been good neighbors all these years, now they're going to be forced to move up front. and you're not going to see our building anymore at all. For years, the Parkers and I had discussed, well, what would we do if we could maybe move our building, or I could redo mine, and I finally decided we're going to take down the subway and we're going to make it a pretty building. But still, we were always in conversation about, well, maybe next year you guys can do yours, and then we can have some sort of cohesive look on this corner, something to make it pretty. The tornado then came through, and I realized that. But y'all, the building sits there because that's the way y'all made us do it. And now you're going to make my neighbors move up, which is going to basically block us out. And I don't think it's fair. I don't know what the answer is, but it's certainly not this. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you. If you would, please come forward and give your name and address for the record.
I'm David Cusimano. I'm one of the partners that operated the Tide Clean Car Wash on 740 15th Street. It's at the intersection of 15th Street and McFarland. We've been there for about 40 years. We've been good citizens, I think. The Armstrong family, which is the A&M, has been great citizens of Tuscaloosa, donated the Children's Hands-On Museum building and so forth. What's that matter? Doesn't matter a whole lot to a lot of people. It matters to us. I'm concerned about the uncertainty of the plan. We have a lot of roads that go behind our store, beside our store. We're hearing that some of the roads may be vacated, may not be. Well, that changes the design that I have. So what I'm asking you is, I can't draw up a plan. I don't know if that road's going to be there or not.
In my recommendation to the City Council, I've included the vacation of that road that I believe is north of yours. In fact, I think Mr. McConnell may have met with you last week and talked about, to give you more room, the city would look at trying to work with you on vacating that piece of property to give your lot size more room.
And John's done a good job, but until, I meet with John, and then I had to go to TDOT, and John graciously met with us at TDOT, and the guys at TDOT, Robinson and Griffin, said, well, we're going to put a turn lane in. Well, when you add a turn lane, you add a sidewalk, suddenly you're pushing me more back. So I don't know if I can go back or not, but I have an insurance issue. They want to know if I'm going back. It's a big difference if you're building back or not building back. Mr. Garrison, he knows all about that and what they pay you and what they don't pay you. To us, it could be $500,000 difference in dollars. And I know we're an exception. We're different. We have a service station. If you build a service station, you got to have a canopy. You can't move the building wherever you want. There's not a service station in America that's put 10 foot from the property line on the front of the property. You always pull in, park. You either get gas, you don't get gas, you go inside, buy what you want to buy. 75% of our customers get gas and drive off. And what I'm asking the city is to consider some changes to the zoning that would consider that service stations are special or different than a regular retail business. Our pumps should be considered as parking because that's where 75% of our customers go, and then they drive off. But it's not under the current ordinance. And so when you say I need 21 spaces or 25 spaces, if I've got 4 pumps, that's 8 spaces, and it doesn't get counted in the calculation.
Yeah, you're the second person to come to me on that. I think that's a very good suggestion for something else to look at. Because I think we're talking today, you're in such a unique position. That intersection has got major issues.
Right.
I mean, it's got functional issues that have to be addressed at whether the tornado ever came through or not. But I think John expressed to you, I know, our willingness to talk with you about if we vacate that street, we want to work with you and those other property owners that are on McFarland Boulevard who have those floodway issues as well. We want to take that as an opportunity. But I think that's a good idea.
And I appreciate the city. I appreciate John listening to me and appreciate a lot of the other people at TDOT and other people in John's department. And that's the key, I think, to these businesses. We're just asking you to listen to some of our concerns and our issues. Not up here arguing or fussing or whatever. We want this city to come back as big and as nice as it can be. If it wasn't for customers that buy my gasoline, I wouldn't have business. I've got 15 other stores in Tuscaloosa, some in Northport. There's a lot of great things the council has done. The alcohol sales really helped our business. It was the right decision. There's a lot of good things that is the right decision. But putting a sidewalk down McFarland with a 60,000 car count, okay, and putting a bicycle lane, it's not practical. I live there. I work there every day. I had cars running to my gas pumps. I had cars running to my sign. We don't want kids driving bicycles down there. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. I can understand the sidewalk being in other areas, but right there on that intersection, it's not safe. It's not a good decision. And I would ask you to reconsider some of the things in the plan, not the whole plan, just some of the things with some of the businesses in consideration. I know it's hard for some people to admit this, but it seems like the residents had a lot to say about what's in the plan. I'm not saying which area was more important, but I don't think a lot of the businesses got to give their opinion on the plan, particularly those that are in that village area or in the 15th McFarland area. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else wish to address City Council or not? If you would, please come forward and give your name and address for the record.
Gilda Wells, 1915th Street, Gilda Salon Day Spa. And I don't have much to say tonight because I wasn't expecting to be here. I've missed some of the meetings. But I can't get a building permit. And I think we submitted probably about 3 months ago. So we're still waiting on that, so I don't have a whole lot to say. I'll probably be hollering and screaming when we do get it, if we get it. And I don't know who my councilman is in that area. Who is that? Harrison Taylor? Okay, I'll be talking to you. I have one question, though. My building is right next to the waterway that we spent all that money for, the city did. How long am I going to have to continue to pay flood insurance?
About a month ago, when I say just, we went back to go get a new hydrology study to see throughout the whole tornado recovery path, to see just exactly where the new updated flood maps will be.
Well, I did apply with the SBA to have that backup money just in case I had to take my building down or so forth and so on. However, they will not issue, I'm paying $10,000 a year now for flood insurance with a $25,000 deductible, and I've been there 6 years and I haven't had a flood yet. Came real close. I reminded you of that at one of the meetings we had back before the tornado hit. I think it was in December, when we were talking about beautifying 15th Street, which I'm for. Yeah. However, I do think some of us, and I keep hearing these horror stories about people not being able to build back for this, that, and the other. I can't say one way or the other because I don't know what all's going on.
On your building permit, I'm curious, John, does that have anything to do with the floodway issue?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, my builder has been dealing with it, and last week they kindly thought that we would get it, and then it didn't happen. We had to submit an appraisal, I think, of what we paid or whatever it was when we purchased it. And then when I saw the news on the front page today, I thought, uh-oh, I wonder if that has something to do with the flood zone area. Was I going to be involved in that since I'm right next to it?
If you were, you should have gotten a letter or will get a letter. Any of the homes that touched I think there was 133 properties.
Well, it wasn't my home, it was just my business. Yeah. But I can't wait to be relieved of that flood zone. That's very expensive.
Hopefully the Willowwick project will hopefully take you out.
Because I keep hollering at Robin, tell me something, because I can't wait. And then the SBA, the Small Business Administration, they say I have to have more insurance for the flood for them to even loan me the money. So, right now I'm waiting for a building permit.
We'll check on that.
Okay.
Mr. McConnell will give you a call tomorrow before noon.
Okay. Well, maybe I should... Well, I'll just call him and talk to him, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address City Council tonight? If you would, please come forward and give your name and address for the record.
My name is John Carney. I'm the owner of Express Oil Change, formerly located at 604 15th Street. And, you know, we talk about we don't have a moratorium, we don't have a moratorium. And then last night we spent 15 minutes talking about a moratorium. And Mr. McConnell is going to have plans when he comes up in January. And Mr. Garrison wants to talk about, you know, why we have to get a lecture, whether we have business income loss or not. That's none of your business. That's none of your business. You said come here May the 11th for a meeting or something like that. I'm still trying to get a demolition permit on May the 11th. The city can't find the sewer line. So I'm out there busting up asphalt and concrete trying to find the sewer line so the sewer line can get capped. I can't even think about building. I've got to worry about demolition. We go to 3 meetings at the Bryant Conference Center. We hear about, let's talk to FEMA, wait for FEMA, let's do something. FEMA's going to help us out. FEMA was a joke. I got employees. I lost 14 vehicles on my property. I have guys who had full coverage of insurance. I had guys who didn't have full coverage. They can't get their coverage. They can't get their cars covered. And yeah, I am paying my people. I'm paying every one of them. I meet them every Thursday at 4:15, but that's my deal. That's nobody else's deal. And yeah, I get concerned when the business income runs out. I do. But we spent 15 minutes talking about that we'll have some proposals and things ready by January. Well, that's when I start getting worried, because that's 210 days of wasted time. And then we talk about, well, the proposals would have been fine prior to the August 2nd meeting or whatever. Well, the 10-foot line came out on August the 2nd, and I called one of you city councilmen, and you said this is a 50-year plan and we're prepared for lawsuits. Holy moly. That's fantastic. That's what I need is an adversarial relationship. I've been in business for 25 years. I said this last night. I had plans to rebuild that business. I had a state-of-the-art 21st century location. Express Oil is certified that Express Oil is building in cities 10 times as big as Tuscaloosa. They're building, and these are meeting all their codes. But when you have to go back and change and have a 10-foot line and you can't use the existing footprints, and you meet the parking requirements, you meet the landscaping requirements, but there's no give and take. I can meet the parking requirements, but we don't have any give and take. It's this way or no way. And nobody gets a bonus. If they meet the parking requirements, they don't get to round it together to get these people back to work. I got 8 people that have worked for me from 2 to 15 years. It's not a job. It's a career. I'm the number 2 store in a 175-store chain. They want me to get to work, but I'm out on an island. I don't know where. I get no support from corporate. I get no support from the city, so I'm out here waiting, reading the paper. Moratorium word comes up on the paper, whether we define it, however we define it. The word moratorium shows up in a lot of places, and it didn't come from me, and it didn't come from any of these people. So somebody's talking moratorium. So, you know, all we want to do is we want to get back in business. We want to get back what we had, and I know whether we can do that or not is debatable. I hope that's the case. Maybe it will be. But I thought for sure that when we had the first football game on September the 3rd, we would have a press conference, and we would show the world and ESPN and the whole world, because you know they're going to be talking about it, and we would be saying, look what happened 4.5 months ago, look how we've cleaned it up, and look how we're starting to rebuild. And it's a shame that third phase will not be taking place. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address City Council? Anyone else wish to address City Council? Thank you for coming tonight. Subject to the exercise of mayoral veto and ordinances of a general nature or permanent operation, all applicable departments are hereby ordered to otherwise implement council policy this
Move we adjourn.
Moving second to adjourn. Voting, Mr. Tinker.
Yes.
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 Meeting's adjourned.
Hey, John.